Thank you for being here. I'm very excited about this big crowd. And I'm quickly introducing myself. I'm Irina Zucca Alessandrelli. I'm the curator of Collezione Ramo in Milan, which is a collection of 20th century Italian drawings devoted to works on paper from the very beginning of the 20th century until the late 80s. And here I am with Nathalie Anglès, that I feel like introducing her as foreigner visitor guest. Since I'm Italian, I'm doing the introduction. So Nathalie Anglès is the founder and director of a residency program in New York called Residency Unlimited, which is a resident I finished a month ago. I've done in September actually, and is a residency program for curators and for artists. So I quickly pass the microphone, the gelato, to Nathalie to introduce her.
Thank you. I love the name gelato, which I understand is the name for the microphone, which I think is brilliant. So thank you, Irina, and it's really a pleasure to be here. I'm very happy because a number of residents from Residency Unlimited, also known as RU, are exhibiting. So the artists that I have selected are artists who were part of the program, and Irina has made her selection as well. And so since we don't have much time, we're going to start, and we'll exchange thoughts as we go from booth to booth. So let's start.
Let's go. So now we are starting with this section, Back to the Future, which is a section I really appreciate since I'm also very much into modern art and also into contemporary, but my expertise is in the 20th century modern art. So we're gonna visit a booth by the Tiziana di Caro gallery from Naples. And today she has a solo show by this artist called Betty Danon, who actually who's no longer alive. And she was born in Istanbul. So she was a Turkish artist from a Jewish family. And we're gonna see a decade of her production. And today we're very lucky because her daughter is in the booth and she's gonna intervene and tell us some anecdotes of her mom. And then we will visit another booth where we will see an artist who is gonna turn 70 soon, and then we are gonna visit two living artists. So we will focus on modern and contemporary art. So I introduce you gallerist Tiziana Di Caro from Naples and the daughter of Betty Danon, Marcella Danon, who's gonna say some comments at the end of the visit. So as I said, the booth is devoted to 10 years in the career of Betty Danon, starting from the 69, from these works, ending to the 79, to the last works over there. She, as I said, she was born in Istanbul. Actually, she got married with an Italian man who was Turkish, but from an Italian family. So Danon is actually an Italian last name. So she has been naturalized Italian citizen. She moved to Milan in the 56, and then she started to decorate her husband's office, and that's how she started to work in the art field. She was decorating and starting to do collages, and she, at the same time, she was following Jungian therapy, and she has been influenced very much by Jung and also by the writing and the theoretic writings of Kandinsky. So she started to do this collage, combining the dialectic of the opposite, and so the yin and yang. And she has been very much influenced by Eastern philosophy. After working with squares and circles, as you could see from these works, she kept working with the square, and for a while she experimented also painting after working with collages. So here we are moving towards the 70s, from 69 to 72. And then over there, you could see that after painting, she decided to go back to collages. And actually, she started to collect some tape that she used to cut in parts the paintings. And with those tapes, she went back to collages. You could see actually how at some point she has been a protagonist of what has been called visual poetry. Not in the sense that she was writing poems with alphabet, but she was using signs as her alphabet. So she introduced the musical stuff, the musical lines, and through the musical lines, she began to make overlaps transparent paper, and to actually combine an aspect of a line and a dot. She used the line as a symbol of rational aspect of creativity, so of mind, the most linked to the mind aspect of creativity. And then she uses the writings, in this sense, the kind of notes she was going to add to the musical stuff as an expression of more lyrical poetry, as an expression of emotion. So basically, she kept combining the two elements we saw at the very beginning of the visit, the yin and the yang. And she always had in mind this idea of balancing the two aspects, the female and male. And so basically, from musical aspects, she always touched the field of sound, because actually she was the only Italian artist invited to the 1979 show of sound art in New York at PS1. And in fact, we are going to end this decade with the artworks made in a performance, which was actually a memory of sound design. Basically, what she did, she was always using this musical scores, and she was using an invisible ink, which in Italian is called inchiostro simpatico. I love the name. So she was using this transparent ink, and she was recording with a tape. She was sitting on a table, on a desk, and she was recording the sound that this transparent ink was making on the paper. And then she took, with the paintbrush stroke with blue ink, she was passing on what she wrote before, and the blue ink was making appear the transparent ink. So basically, you could read the work after her final, the stroke of the blue ink at the very end of the performance. And so she was playing very much also with this aspect of sound, and in a sort of reference to melody, and in a sort of reference to a personal diary, which was not made by regular writing, but made with written signs, always overlapping the musical score, so in reference to a music and to a sound. And I would like to pass for 1 second the gelato to the daughter of the artist, who is here, and also can explain what is actually the writing of her mother, that also testify how she, in a way, went out of the artwork in a very programmatic way, in a very coherent way. So if you want to add some comments on this.
Thank you, Irina. Welcome. Although this work seems very different one from this other, from color and squares and until arriving to very more subtle signs, there is a very coherent internal search, philosophical search. The circle becomes a dot while the square becomes a line, and she's always searching among the combination, among fixed things like the scores, the straight line in the scores, and variable things like the eternal dimension and our present dimension, always changing. In one of her works, she arrived to the essence of who am I. So am I am, it becomes slowly, slowly, dot line, the essence. And a certain moment, working by herself seems to her too little. She's been discovered by the mail art environment, and she sent a little score, like a postcard dimension, done by hand with her line, like you can see this ondulata, wavy line. And each artist could do an intervention in his own. She sent more than 250 and received 224 works with intervention either one side, other in the other. So it has been exposed in Apollinaire Gallery of Guido Lenoci. Each work was hanged from the ceiling, so it was possible to walk around all these works and look at them. The same exposition has been shown again this April in Frigoriferi Milanesi. That's been really a big emotion to see again the same kind of explosion. And she expected this exposition to have a lot of success, but in a certain sense, it hasn't been understood. So she got upset from an official world of galleries and of contemporary art, and she decided to concentrate on getting in touch with the artists one by one. So she stops doing, within 1 or 2 years after this exposition in Lenoci, she stops doing a personal exhibition and she concentrates in collective ones in all the rest of the world. And where she exposed her works and works that she does together with other artists. She continued to be in touch with international artistic environment until the end of her life. Just in the last weeks, and Pete Sand from Australia was one of her correspondents, came and visited her and stayed with her while she was ill in the last time. She continued work until the end. She had groups of women searching for her own creativity, so she was helping them to look inside, because each one of us is an artist. So her philosophical search started to become her own art. She was saying that the real art is our lives, and the aim for each one of us is to make out of our personal life our personal artwork.
So, thank you so much. So we could say, to conclude, that Betty Danon was an extremely original artist who actually crossed several movements. So she passed through visual poetry to conceptual art, sound art, and she went out in a very, I think, serene way, very calm, out of the typical artwork of the gallery, but she continued to work in a more social, engaged, workshop style environment. So with still working with people, but not in the artwork. Now we should go to the next one. Okay, I'm gonna focus on Paul Guy's production. He works with sculptures, he works with painting, and he works with drawings. I love this work because Paul Guy actually started to work after the end of movements, the avant-garde movements, we could say. So he started to work in the 80s, and his material are for us are familiar with arte povera and with land art. So here you could see how he could use stone combined with wood and metal. So materials that we know have been used before him in land art and arte povera. But what he did was to create, through a sense of, I think, a sense of humor, to create a balance, to create always a state of peace, where the visitor, in my opinion, I mean, at least me, I'm always tempted to take the stone out, take the stone apart, and I have this feeling of risk where everything could slip and falls apart in 1 second. But at the same time, he's playing with it, with the tension, with the sense of risk, and with this fragile piece. It's a sort of symbols, I think, of his attitude towards life, that he actually consider in a very calm and balanced way, in a sort of take it easy behavior. So he always give me hope, and in the sense that even in difficulties, you always find a way to balance everything. And I want also to stress the other work that is a clear reference to work of arte povera. For example, what Paolini did with the frames. Here you can see picture of the back of the frames, and also with his work on paper, which is very much related to his sculpture. The works on paper sometimes works as a sketch, and sometimes it's just his way of reasoning of what a sculpture will look like, an upcoming sculpture. I like very much the kind of photographic frames he uses. And here also you see play with collage, with some metal, and in the sense that I love the textures coming out from the drawing. And I think I will pass the gelato to Nathalie.
So we're going to go to the gallery Gilda Lavia, and Gabriella Ciancimino, the artist who you will be meeting, because the artists will be in the booth. So I thought it's a good idea to interview them briefly, but for the artists to share their thoughts about their process and the ideas behind their work. And as I work within a residency framework, the relationship with the artist is really fundamental, because everything starts with the artist. Without the artist, there are no works, and without the works, there are no art fairs nor galleries. So the relationship with the artist is really fundamental. So I'm really happy that you'll meet Gabriella, who was in residency like Irina was this year, and Gabriella realized a mural in New York in the pediatric unit of a hospital which is called the Kings County Center Hospital, which is the largest public hospital in New York. And she came for 2 months, and she worked with the children in the pediatric unit. She worked with the communities, the families, the staff. And so she had to go, it was a very elaborate process, because in order to enter a hospital, you have to follow a certain number of protocols. And she did all of that. And she also worked with groups of kids. It's an organization called Kids Against Violence, because Kings County Center Hospital is in a neighborhood which, you know, for underserved communities. So it's a complicated neighborhood, and she really interacted with, you know, doing workshops with, you know, kids from underprivileged backgrounds, and she's an amazing person. So I'm really happy to see her again here, and she's actually based in Palermo, and she's going to be leaving right after to catch her plane. So I'm glad that we're able to see her, and I love her work. Her work is amazing. I'm really delighted to, this is the group that's come to see your work. And what I said is that we don't have very much time, but I'm just going to ask you a question. So this is the work by Gabriella. There's a video, but we're going to concentrate on your drawings. And you have to look at them closely because they're incredibly intricately designed. So, Gabriella, you know how much I admire your work for its intricate and labor-intensive aesthetic qualities, but also because of your social engagement. And as an artist who looks at the parallels between migratory flows of humans, but also plants, that's Gabriella's great focus. I explained to them that you worked recently at Kings County Center Hospital. So in the execution of your works, you superimpose graphic layers, and this is why you have to look at the works really closely, of paper cuts, stencils, stamps, cartographic and vegetarian references. Vegetation, not vegetarian.
Basically, the final work is like a map. This map is without coordinates because I think it's a kind of metaphorical concept. Is a period like culturally and politically we have not really great references. So, but this map, that if you go really close to the drawing, you can see a lot of detail. And it's a way to attract the attention, but also to invite the people to focus on every little detail can make a composition of a big map. And this map is created by flowers and plants that I draw or live, or sometimes just make a research of botanical illustration. Then you can find the real map designed in the last centuries by Arabic geographer. This is the Mediterranean area, and I just had iconography, the iconography of some magazine that is anarchist one or libertarian that I collect around the world. So it's a kind of, let's say, like a DJ playing with some elements and try to have the real reference, because this is real, this is real, this is real, but try to just give back a kind of imaginary vision. But the references is all the time the past, so you cannot escape, but you can think about the future and try to find the new coordinates. The part for me, it's, I'm from Palermo, so and of course the Mediterranean area is part of my culture. So that's why I choose all the time flowers that come from North Africa or the East, or in a way is the mirror of the situation we are having politically in terms of migration.
So you have, you were explaining to me yesterday, you have sunflowers referenced here, and all of these are seeds that, you know, are transported, you know, and so the notion of weeds, I don't know how you say weeds in Italian.
It's erbacce, it's like a bed.
Right. But the weeds are actually good because they are very strong and they're very resilient, and they're nomadic, and you make this parallel between the you know, human flows of migration and flows of plants. And I find that just very interesting. And then this extensive research. So you have to imagine a mural by Gabriella that takes over the whole space, because she's able to do that. And so here they're just small works, but I'm just crazy about your work because I think it's absolutely extraordinary. And the labor that goes into it and the layers is just incredible. So I know you have to catch your plane, but I don't know if you have something else to add, or Irina, maybe you have a comment to make.
Well, maybe we should stress a little bit our background, even in the political activism.
Yeah, okay. The story, I would like to be synthetic before. So my story start like a political activist and journalist. So I journalist. So then I became an artist because in a way I had a lot of censorship when I was writing about strong items like immigration, or we are talking 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So, and then I just in Sicily. It's a really particular social contest. And then when I had my censorship, I really understood that I cannot continue with this kind of work. And I approached to the art. And of course, everything you see is part of my background. It's political. There is also graffiti one. There is a lot of, even in the video, for me, there is no difference for this because if you see the video, it's a kind of layer by layer, like a drawing. In terms of in the drawing, the layers is like a metaphor of how the culture come from different layer. Here is like a postcard, but if you just read the statement of this video, it's not really different of this drawing because there is the nature, there is the Mediterranean area, there is the political connection. So, I mean, all the work I do, for me, it's important that people can understand. That's why I just had some really clear iconography because sometimes the people cannot understand contemporary art. And for me, it's great that not only the professionals, but normal people, like people that are not connected with that, they can understand, so they can feel happy to approach. And I mean,
Yes, and you also work with communities, kids in Palermo, and so you have this. It's a necessity for you to interact with communities, with people, to realize your work as well, which is another very interesting aspect.
I also would like to stress the technique, which is very interesting for me, because I see elements from nature, flowers, from female, what is considered typical female craftsmanship, which I think it's important in your background, probably. Can you tell us a little bit how you really cut this paper? Because I see it's a work on paper, but the technique is very original.
so basically, I start to make drawing by pencil, and then I had watercolor. I make some stamps with metal bottom and ink, and then I start to cut everything with scalpel. And I finish just when one layer is ready. He decide when it's ready. I just had the second layer, the third layer. I mean, I arrive to the final form, adding paper on paper on paper, and it seems like a broderie. It's broderie, and it's really common. I mean, I think it's like a lot of traditional technique in Sicily, in particular, are related to broderies. I think I talk this kind
It
of.
looks like pizza in a way.
Yeah, the pizza. Yeah.
Gabriella, we have to move on, but thank you. Dietrich and Schlechtrim Gallery, which is representing the artist Alfredo Aceto, who is born in Turin, but he is based in Geneva. No, in Lausanne now. He lives in Switzerland, and he came. Yes, European background, but he's based in Lausanne now, where I think he teaches at the University of Design. And so Alfredo was another artist in residency at Residency Unlimited, and he came in 2015. So I haven't seen him for a couple of years, although I reconnected with him yesterday. And we will go and see the works that he produced for Artissima. And I was explaining to the group that you were in residency at RU in 2015. And when I met you, you were 23 years old. So now you're 28, I think. And so you were probably the youngest artist that we worked with at the time. We also worked with an artist who was 78 years old right after you. So it was a nice kind of parallel balance, let's say. So I will just give you a few thoughts that I will read off my iPhone. And so what I realized is that when I first knew you, you developed a body of work that in hindsight, you have a very distinct style that is marking this new body of works as well. What I'm trying to say is that even at the age of 23, you really were already very kind of grounded in your practice. So the objects that you create, because they are objects, you know, we can say they have a mysterious and at the same time familiar quality. They come from, you know, you kind of know, you have a sense of what they might be, but then you subvert them. But basically, yes, your style, you know, refers to many different, there are many different references, whether it's pop or Pino Pascali or surrealism, etc., etc. But that's really, ultimately, I don't think any of this matters. And what strikes me is that you create a very personalized vocabulary in which you and only you hold the key to their meaning. That is my sense. And so they operate almost at the register of like a private joke or a memory, or so there's this very personal thing that's happening. And I also was reading the poem that you wrote, which is, I didn't know that you were a writer and a poet, but I think that the text is really beautiful. And from what you told me yesterday, this poem that is a poem to the fair, which is an interesting concept in itself, is the starting point for all of these works. So maybe, since we don't have very much time, but would you like to respond to my comments?
Yeah, I think you're true regarding the role of these objects in my shows. Like they all comes from very specific places, but then I like to use them as sentences or words, and with these objects you can transform them and make other things and tell other stories. So yeah, they're never really fixed in the position they have at the beginning, and they always change during the process, and then also during the show. Like people can see in this object whatever they want, and it's totally open to whatever kind of interpretations.
So yesterday you were mentioning about the popcorn elements, that how that came about.
Yeah, that it's very like simple and easy story. Like once somebody broke a sculpture like this, and inside the fiberglass is white, so it pops out many pieces of fiberglass that was looking in a similar way to this popcorn. So I just decided to use popcorns for the next sculptures, just in reminding this kind of mistake that happened. So it's never really very important stories. It's always related to the anti-heroic position of objects in a way.
On the other hand, there is this very personal kind of narrative that you are entertaining with each object, and I feel that what I was saying before, that it's a very personal kind of meaning which you don't necessarily want to share, because it's, you know, it's part of your kind of everyday.
I think really objects can, in our world, which is very digitalized in a way, the object has to stay in this field in which you can decide whatever they have to represent, and I don't have any power on it, and I don't want to have it.
So maybe we can just end with this work here, which is very spectacular and joyful. So does it have a title?
Yeah, it's Laughing Windows.
Laughing Windows.
1 and 2, there's 2. And it's the back part, which looks like metallic, is a fabric piece. So it's just fabric stretched on a canvas, like a painting in a way. And it's made with this fabric that is generally used for jogging pants or sportwear. And the part in front is, of course, in relation to the sofa, but also to Pino Pascali and also to many things, which is, we can say about it, but it's also a piece that is independent from the reference that he has. But of course, I'm very close to Pino Pascali's work, so of course there's these two.
Well, we are ending here, thank you so much for following us, and goodbye to everybody.
And Alfredo, thank you. And just a final note: you were born in Turin. You're a Turinois, as we say in French, but based in Switzerland.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting your education in Switzerland. Can you just tell something very quickly about that?
Yeah, I went to ECAL, the École Cantonale d'Art de Lausanne, in 2012, and I teach there now. And yeah, I think I discovered there many things. It's a great school, and we have now super great students now. So it's an ongoing story.
Which artists have been your reference?
As a teacher, I had Sylvie Fleury, I had Valentin Caron, John Armleder, Philippe Descrezats, and many others.
Thank you so much.